and welcome to Marriage Matters, another episode of the awesomeness of Jojo and Andy B.
Yes, I'm Joe.
And I'm Andy B. Funnily enough. So welcome, and we're looking at what?
We're looking at, sex. We're calling it Let's Get Physical. And this is where we're... Oh no, you didn't go there.
I did. Not Olivia Newton-John's finest hour, I don't think.
No. We're looking at the physical side and the intimate side of relationships of marriage. So that is, and we'll sort of share something of our own testimony, see what the Bible says and stuff like that.
I'd forgotten the title. I think I blocked the video out of my mind and the song. That's why I forgot the title. Yeah, that's what we're looking at today. But as ever, if you want to keep up to date with all that we're doing across the Merry Bunch, you can do this. And you can like us on Facebook, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we're on Tumblr, and we're on Twitter. There's lots of places you can find our stuff. And the best thing you can do, to be honest, is sign up to the Berry Bites newsletter, which comes out every week, and we give you a little roundup of what's gone on. Yeah. And why is it Berry Bites with a Y? Because why not?
Excellent.
It doesn't get any better than this.
I feel like we've been building up to this episode, haven't we? We've sort of been beating around the bush, going wide in terms of relationships, date nights, that kind of thing.
Like digital verbal foreplay, kind of. We've touched on this a little bit.
And so now we're just going for it. Sex in marriage, and how that works and what the problems might be and issues. But it's an interesting subject. It's sometimes it can be difficult to talk about it. But sadly, it's talked about a lot in the wrong way, isn't it?
Yes.
And so we want to hopefully look at it in the right way.
We do, and it's often made out to be this big topic that I don't know how it was for you growing up. Actually, I'm not quite sure what it was like for you growing up, but for me, this was a subject you don't talk about this ever. You talk to somebody else, and it was ridiculous, really, because it's part of life. If you are a child, then you came into the world through sex, basically. So why do we have this big thing? And as a family, we've always had this rule. It doesn't matter what the topic is. We always have the same thing. If you want to ask about it, ask about it. And we have chats across the dinner table. And if it's not appropriate for the dinner table, it probably shouldn't be talked about anyway. So our kids have asked us about sex. Where do we come from? How did it get in there? What's going on with this? So they have natural questions. And if you answer normal questions in a normal way, it's not a big issue.
Yeah, I must admit, though, I do laugh every time it's on a film and then a child asks about the birds and the bees, and I do laugh and think, oh, no, that's embarrassing. But it's funny. But actually, we shouldn't be embarrassed about it because it is very natural and very much part of life, isn't it?
Well, life is here because of sex, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Whether you're single, married or anything else, you are here because of sex. So it's a topic which gets bandied around. You see it in videos and music stuff. You see it in films where it's really inappropriate. We don't need to know that that's going on, thanks. You just shut the door and it's perfectly good. In fact, I actually remember we watched a film. What was the film? Australia.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really excellent film, actually. We showed it to our boys. However, because this is what I do, I actually edited the video and I cut out the little piece of a sex scene between the two main characters. And, quite seamlessly, if I say so, for our own personal use, because our boys don't need to see that. And do you know what? They knew exactly what went on in the film. I did the same thing to Pearl Harbor, which is another good film. Yeah. And I cut out a sex scene in there. We don't need to see a woman grunting and sweating and panting on a screen. We know what's going on. And the boys exactly knew what was going on without having that scene. So it wasn't necessary, Hollywood. You don't need to put it in. We get it.
Yeah, so I suppose a lot of films will give sex a bad name, won't it? And we'll see it in the wrong way. I remember the episodes of Friends, and it was just in and out of each other's beds and really sort of making it sound great. And I say, we're talking about sex in marriage, aren't we? Where God has told us that's the best. That's the best for us.
As ever, we look at it from our own experience. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about what your experience is. This is our show and our experience. So there. But we talk about it in context of our marriage. Me and Joe, and what does sex mean in a marriage? What does God say about it? How should it work out and look and all that kind of thing. So we'll look at some of those things.
Yeah.
Shall we have a break?
Yeah.
In 2018, Joe and I were full-time children's ministers, loving what we were doing and wanting to share our resources freely with others to use. Scroll on 2 years to 2020 and we'd finally launched our berrybunch.family website. Chock full of resources. It was a bit embarrassing when we had one video, but we've now got nearly 500 videos for you to use, stream, share and download, with 900 posts. All full of information that you are free to use in your situation, whether that's a church, a family, or just for your own personal use. We've been asked to do all sorts of things. We've made logos. There's somebody who wanted a new logo for their blog. We've been asked to create children's discipleship group, so we've done that. We've been asked to create a book about broken dreams and hope, and we've done that as well. We love creating resources that are relevant for your situation, so get in touch with what your needs are. Our vision and our passion is to create material that is family safe for free for all, wherever you are in the world. And that is exactly what we do. So if you want to help us continue to do that, or if you want us to make something specific for your situation, then get in touch.
So we're back now for the main section, the meaty section we call it, don't we? And
The meaty section.
Yeah. And so what we'd do now is obviously share something of our own experience, look at what the Bible tells us, and see where we go with that. So where do you want to start then, Andy?
Well, I've got a really, really bad experience, which I thought would be get it out of the way. So when we were first married, newlyweds, the honeymoon's great, everything's going really wonderful. We'd managed to buy a house, which was awesome, and life was good. Jo was focusing on her work, I was focusing on mine. She was shift work, quite a hard job, and I was working a different kind of shift work with trucking, and it got quite tense at one point. I think it got to one night when you didn't want to make love to me, so I thought, right, that's it, stuff this, you're not getting any affection from me, so I wouldn't hold your hand and I wouldn't kiss you. And we had kind of 6 to 8 months of hell, quite honestly, which I initiated, sadly. And I just thought, well, if she's not going to do that, I won't do that. And, tit for tat never works anywhere. It definitely doesn't work in a marriage bed. And so it's a sad story, really, of the sort of 6 to 8 months. It's about a year into our marriage, and we barely looked at each other. We didn't see each other really, and it was a really hard time. Now, roll on 25 years, I know that it's quite normal to have a time when that kind of initial, it's really exciting, you're having sex with somebody, that kind of goes. That is normal, actually, but at the time it felt like it was the end of the world, which is why I did what I did, but you were really exhausted, and I didn't really understand that, and, kaboom.
Yeah.
Big explosion, but we eventually got that sorted. But I remember thinking, right, that's it, tough, I won't kiss you. And kissing is a really important part. We kiss our children, we kiss, if you're in France, maybe you kiss on the cheek, it's kind of a greeting thing, so it's quite an intimate thing to do. And obviously in the context of marriage, kissing is a really important part of it. You may now kiss the bride, my favourite part of the wedding day.
Yeah.
Before the food came, the food was very good. Anyway, so yeah, it was a really dark time, but I think that can happen. We talk about real talk, this is part of our life. We're sharing that because we want you to be encouraged that, you can go through rough times. That's 24 years ago for us, and we've come through that, and we're stronger ever since. So don't worry too much if you're having a really bad spell. However, if intimacy is something that you want and your wife doesn't want to have sex with you, then tit for tat, I won't do anything for her. I mean, where's that in the Bible?
Yeah, I think what's sticking out for me is that it's not just physical, is it? I know we're talking, let's get physical. We're talking about the sex, the actual act of the intercourse, but actually it's not on its own. It doesn't stand alone. No. There are, like you say, kissing is an important part. How we feel emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's all part of it, isn't it? You got some scripture there for us?
I do. Matthew 19:6, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. So they are it's not in context, but hey, go and read the rest of the chapter. Chapter 19, verse 6. They are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate. And this is really the purpose of sex within a marriage. If you go back long enough, then sex is for having babies. And yes, that can be a part of it. But there's some really good stuff we'll come on to as to why that is not the case. Because if you say, well, sex is for babies, then if you are married and for some reason you're not able to have children, it doesn't make your marriage less.
Yeah, because I remember we were talking about this. We were talking about Abraham and Sarah. And they were they didn't have a child till they were about, was it 120? And
they were old. They were past the bus pass age.
And so, we're pretty sure that they were carrying on having sex because obviously they did have a child in the end.
The age doesn't matter. They were old.
But they kept going.
She was barren. She was no longer having a period there. She could not have children. So we're talking about today's day. She's in her 60s, in her 70s, at least.
And
they're still at it. It's great.
Still being intimate, yeah.
But here's the thing about sex that gets better. If you we've talked about kind of one-night stands, we've looked at the kind of hookup culture and why that isn't very beneficial. But the thing about it is, I've had 25 years of practice with Jo, and she's had 25 years of practice with me. If you practice something for 25 years, and sex is part of this, it gets better. Not to smile too much, but 25 years of sex practice is good with the same person. So I know how Jo works, she knows how I work, and it gets better because if you practice something, it gets better. A one-night stand, I'm sorry, but you're never going to have as good a sexual relationship with one-night stands as you can in a marriage. It is simply not possible.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, God created sex. God gave us this benefit, if you like, this good thing, and it is good. When God created the universe, everything was good. He said it is good. Now obviously we're living in the time after the fall, and so every marriage is tainted, isn't it? There is no marriage that has got it right, and there are going to be issues in and around sex as well. We know that the Bible is clear that we should have a man and a woman together, and one man and one woman, although we see in the Bible there are various partners. But that... I always chuckle when it's talking about the church leaders, it's a man of but one wife. I wouldn't want two wives. No, it's just too hard, isn't it? Yeah. That's what the Bible tells us. But, it's just great. God wants us to enjoy ourselves, wants us to have something good. But I think sometimes we just focus on the negative, don't we, of all the negative things around sex and, unwanted pregnancies or diseases or all this sort of in and out of each other's bed or divorce or, all this kind of stuff, the problems. And there are problems. But we wanted to focus on what was God's intention and what does He want for us.
We're not really focusing on the bad stuff. We're looking at what's God's best.
Yeah.
That's always the thing with marriage matters.
And so, if I think about it, sex is enjoyable. It's a stress reliever. What was one of the things you learn for science that you keep telling me about?
You can thank Jay Parker at Hot, Holy and Humorous.
What was that again? The science behind it.
So here's the thing about sex. If you're having sex properly, as in husband, wife, sperm and all that, there's some really good nutrients and chemicals in the man's sperm. So actually it helps the woman's brain.
Oh, you see?
So you can thank Jay Parker. We've got this in the top tips later. But yeah, it's some really good nutrients, chemicals, and it's absorbed in the vagina and it goes into the brain and it's really good.
Yeah, as I say, God is a good God. God is good. He wants good things for his children, and sex is good, isn't it?
But here's the thing.
What?
God doesn't just want it for kids. Do you know why? I love this. This is a bit of science. This is not icky. But the woman's clitoris, right, it grows over time.
Yeah.
Men's ears get bigger and useless. But a woman's clitoris gets bigger over time and it's more able to have orgasm.
Oh, interesting.
So actually, as you get older, it's actually easier and better. Huh. You see, God's got a plan.
Know, actually, so what we got next, scripture-wise?
6:18. 1 Corinthians 6:18.
Yep.
We're taking a little bit of a left-hand turn. We'll come back again in a minute. Flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a man commits are outside his body, but he who sins sexually sins against his own body.
Wow.
Again, it's out of context. Go and read the rest of 1 Corinthians 6. I'm not reading the rest for you. But this is the thing. Flee from sexual immorality. You can have sexual immorality in a marriage because you can have a rape in a marriage. You can have lust, which is bad. Don't ever think lusting is good. It's not. Actually, it's about a beautiful relationship. Sex in a marriage, it's a weapon of spiritual warfare. We've learned that. It's also an act of worship to God. It's all in the Bible if you want to go and find it. I'm not going to reference it for you. But Song of Songs is a whole book about sex. It talks about oral sex and why that's so good. It talks about how intimacy should be like two people who are just, at each other and can't get each other's clothes off fast enough. The Song of Songs really is a beautiful example of what sex in a marriage is supposed to look like. It's not supposed to be boring. That's Hollywood, that is. Our sex life gets better every year. Been married 25 years, I can say quite happily it's got better and it's improved because we're practiced, because we're less stressed about it, we're less anxious about our bodies and all the rest of it. Well, that takes time and it takes practice.
I was thinking about the scripture that talks about don't give up having sex unless you're
1 Corinthians 7 verse 5. I've got it next.
You're going to pray, and I sort of share something of my own story about that. But
shall I read the scripture first?
Yeah.
So this is 1 Corinthians 7:5. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. And just before Joe gives you a bit of a more recent story, I just wanted to really briefly touch on this, because I like the fact that it says, don't stop having sex for too long because you'll be tempted. Why? Because sex is such an important union between a husband and a wife. It's often said that the devil will do whatever he can do to get you to have sex before marriage and to stop you having sex after marriage. And I think that's absolutely true and absolutely right. It's not good, but I think it's absolutely right. But here's the thing, it shouldn't be tempted. But this scripture, do not deprive each other, is not a baseball bat for we have to have sex because God said. If you're going to say that, you're foolish and you're stupid, and I'd like to have a little bit of a chat with you, to be honest. But it's not about having sex. This is a way 1 Corinthians 7:5 says we've got to have sex. No. Do not deprive each other except by mutual agreement. It's not about we have to have sex. It's if you choose to not have sex, it has to be by agreement, and it has to be for the purpose of prayer.
Yeah.
And for a really short time. Now, really short is going to be different in your situation. And we'll come a bit onto frequency later, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about date night, didn't we? And how the whole idea of Marriage Matters is that you need to work at your marriage. And we need to work at spending time together, dates and things. But the same with sex, isn't it? You need to sort of, I mean, I know it's spontaneous is kind of exciting and stuff, but then you do need to plan times, especially you have children, especially you've got work and things that are around. Yes, I noticed you were nicking my tea. But we were sort of recently, weren't we, thinking, come on, we need to make sure we have sex more often because we know how beneficial it is. Because you can get out of, you get tired, you have late nights, and you sort of think, oh yeah, we'll do it one day, or we'll get round to it. And yeah, and the same as prioritizing time together. This is important. So we with mutual agreement decided that we were going to try and make sure we did it more often because we knew that it was important. And in that time, I had to make a decision. It was just buying something more recently, and I just noticed there was a difference in my ability to make that decision from a distance from Andy, and there was this confidence in what I was doing, and I just it's sort of hard to explain, but I did notice the difference. This confidence in myself, my confidence in making decisions, and confidence in us working together on things. It does change things. What I find fascinating is that we're quick to understand and realise the negatives of sex. We bang on about pornography, or we bang on lust or rape and all that kind of stuff, and it's like bombarded in the media. But I think we need to spend more time thinking, what are the benefits? How does it really work? And I think that's what happens, isn't it? You become more confident.
Well, Philippians focus on whatever's good and pure and right.
Yeah, and I think you value, there's a lot of problems in this life about self-worth and value. And if I'm honest, when we were having sex, well, it's not when, but, just during that particular time when we made that effort, I felt I valued myself more. I felt better about myself.
Yes, and I found myself not having to struggle quite so much. I don't struggle with looking at other women. It's not a particular problem. Pornography is not something I've ever really wrestled or struggled with. I know for some guys that can be the case, and some women, it's not a particular one for me. But actually, when we're in a good rhythm of regularly making love, is that a right way of describing it? Actually, everything's easier for me. I don't, if somebody walks along and they've got a short skirt or a tight top, and whereas I might have to actively look away, now it's just not an issue. And I think that's why this is a good weapon of warfare. You're going to have bad times. You're going to have health issues. Babies are going to come along. We had something, having decided, right, we're going to try and make love more. All of a sudden, I had a bit of a health issue, which prevented that for a week or so. And, you make these goals, but don't give up when stuff goes wrong. In life, stuff goes wrong. So you pick yourself up and you go again. But I think one of the things that I would warn you about as strongly as I can is be really careful what you're watching on TV. We threw away a film that we used to happily watch, and I said to Joe, I can't watch this film anymore. I actually felt a bit sick watching it because it's too real. Now, it was only, I think, a 12 or 15. It wasn't graphic, it wasn't gratuitous, but there was something very realistic about the relationship that I thought, I don't want to watch this because actually it's very suggestive, it was very alluring, and I don't want to have that thought in my mind. And I remember reading years ago from UCB Daily Notes, you can't unsee what you see. And as obvious as that sounds, you can't unsee what you see. You can choose to not see certain things. We've always said with our boys when they've walked down the road and there's a woman that's really inappropriately dressed, that you can't be held responsible for what you see the first time, but it's that second look. And in the same context, we need to be careful where we're looking and what we're thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is why we're looking at sex in marriage, because there's an awful lot of rubbish out there. And actually, God's intention is for a husband and wife to be married, to have a regular, frequent, we'll come on to that, ongoing sexual relationship with each other. And if you want to know what's going on and what's right and what's wrong, well, go and read Song of Songs. And if you don't understand the wording of Song of Songs, why is Joe's neck a beautiful thing? Because it's like a pillar of ivory or
gazelle, something about gazelles.
I don't know. There's a book which I'll get, which I have.
Yeah,
in the tip section, which talks about what the heck is the Song of Songs talking about. Doesn't quite say that. But the thing about sex is it's a normal part of life. And if we don't treat it as a normal part of life, it becomes this weird, odd thing that we don't want to talk about. And if you don't talk about it, it becomes a problem. It's the pee under the mattress, isn't it? Should we take a break?
Yeah.
So, endurance. Wait, no, first, I'm Stephen.
I'm Nathan.
And we're brothers, actually.
In case you hadn't noticed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fact.
I know the much more masculine physique on this side may have thrown you off.
Yeah, I'm actually older.
Yeah.
Taller. Longer. Fitter.
Maybe.
Oh, definitely.
Anyway, that's not the point of endurance. The point
no,
is
it
spiritual training, not physical.
Yep.
Not that we don't compete that much.
Nor spiritually. You shouldn't compete spiritually either.
No. But I'm better than you.
Don't know what to say to that.
There is no answer.
So the point of endurance is all about
Take a mick out of each other.
all about 1 Timothy 4 verse 8, which says, physical training is good, but training for godliness is much better. And so it was an idea which, I think it was my idea actually, wasn't it?
It was a joint effort. There's no I in team.
Yes, it was definitely my idea.
Yeah.
And the idea being that we have to, well, I was challenged because basically I enjoy exercise. I was doing lots of weight training, lots of running, and I was getting a bit obsessed.
You were
about
failing
it.
to train spiritually.
Yeah, you could say that I was idolizing physical fitness rather than...
we created endurance to help him learn better how
And
to
so
balance spiritual and physical training.
Yeah, basically. Okay.
Because I've already cracked it.
No.
No?
Got a long way to go yet. So go check us out.
I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, you're way behind.
Cut.
And resources. Tips and resources. I will make a logo one day. Honest. So this is where we look at some tips and resources that we have for you. I have a lot of books. The first book, which shouldn't be a surprise, it's called the Bible. And you know what? There's a whole book in here written about sex. Now, some people say that Song of Songs, it's about a spiritual relationship between us and God, and maybe to some extent you could argue that, but actually it's more realistically looked at, the Song of Songs, as a relationship between a husband and wife, and it's all about sex, to be quite frank. Now, if you want to understand more about that, there's this book, The Message of the Song of Songs by Tom Gledhill. Now, it looks a bit like a study book, and it is a little bit like a study book because it's a study book. However, I really enjoyed reading it. Because when you think about why is there white things in the mouth and each one's got its pair, what's that about? Well, actually, that's about the fact she's got a full set of teeth, which is kind of rare and rather attractive. So it opens up some of those things like the gazelle. I mean, what? Why are the breasts like bouncing or what? It explains it. Okay.
Can I just ask? Am I right in thinking that in the Jewish originally they wouldn't you couldn't read that book until you're 12?
Yes, it was a.
So it just goes to show it must be about
Yes.
sex, mustn't it?
Here's the other thing on that one. So when the Jewish couple got married, their friends would come to the bride's house. They get the married bit, and then they come back to the house that the man would tend to have built. They would then have sex with their friends outside, cheering them on. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Isn't that just a bit different from how we do it today? Close the door and, we're not saying you should see stuff, but
No.
it's a celebration of something amazing and good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, some more books. This is by a husband and wife couple. See, Caroline Mahany and C.J. Mahany. It's really, really good. These two books, they don't go together, but they kind of do, because she writes in the back of his book. But there's a great quote from Carolyn Mahany, which kind of went a bit viral, and it sort of helped her to be a speaker on this. But someone asked her a question one day about, I'm really tired to have sex with my husband, and I've got to make dinner. And she said, just make him a jam sandwich and then go and have sex. That's the English version, because he'll care more for the fact you actually want to be intimate with him and initiate having sex. So another one that goes with that is Sex, Romance and the Glory of God, which is C.J. Mahany. This is really, really good. Simple little book. Really excellent. I found some really great ideas and perspectives on marriage. And the other one, we thank Jay Parker for stuff. It's not, we're not paid to say this, but the stuff on the clitoris getting bigger and the fact there's loads of chemicals in the sperm, which is really good for a wife's brain. That's all out of this, which is really, really good.
Hot, Holy and Humorous.
Hot, Holy and Humorous by Jay Parker, who's a really fantastic, honest blogger.
Yeah.
From the States. We love it. It's great. Yeah.
There's some good stuff there about sex from the biblical perspective in marriage, different sort of takes, and I'm sure they'll be able to pick some tips and stuff up from those
The Bible, Fruit of the Spirit, there you go. That's absolutely perfectly applicable to your marriage.
Yeah.
That first not so good story we talked about, I didn't exhibit any fruit of the Spirit. That was bad.
Yeah.
But actually, when Jo was talking about how we'd made love and then she had to make a decision, I mean, she makes loads of decisions every day, really seriously important ones. But all of a sudden, it's that extra boost of confidence that she said she had. And that came off the back of us making love as an act of worship because we prayed while we're making love. I mean, that's, you can't get any more intimate than prayer with God.
I think that you made a good point that you can, it's just because you're married doesn't mean that you've got it right. And there things are, and we can use sex for the wrong things, can't we, to get what we want or withhold and stuff like that. So it's good for us to examine our motives and think about what we're doing and be prayerful about this, like everything in life, because we can fall foul of different ways of being. Maybe we've picked stuff up because, we've watched things, we've done things, we've experienced things, and we've seen parents do things. So I think one of my tips would be, just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and you've talked this through with each other and with God.
Having a ring, being a husband and wife, doesn't make it all right. And it's really sad when a couple get married and they think, great, we've not had sex before marriage, and now we've waited, we've got married, and it's not working. And there's another blog which has escaped my mind, but they had a real problem because she had extreme pain when they were first having intercourse, and well, that's not right.
Yeah.
And it was a real struggle, and it's part of her story and testimony. It's amazing. I'll link it in the section because I've forgotten the name of it. But, she had really painful sex, and well, we've waited all this time to have sex, and now it hurts. But it's supposed to be right and good and pure, and it just doesn't work that way in life sometimes, sadly. And her testimony is dealing with that, and then the relationship, there was struggles with pornography for her particularly, and then they sort the pain out and they sort the marriage out. And, it's never too late. It really isn't.
You can talk to God about anything, even sex.
You can. When you first became a Christian, you used to cover yourself up because you didn't want God to see you naked. Yeah. And when I met you a few years after you come to faith and you said that, I said, okay.
It was sweet, wasn't it?
It was very sweet. It was a lovely innocence of God. Oh, it's great. So we'll be back after these little messages. I was asked to record a video and write a book by a friend. He'd seen so many people with broken dreams, just hopeless about life they were living and the life before them. So I wrote a book. It's my very first book. It's called Broken Dreams and Hope. It's based on my own life, some struggles that I've had, and the fact that through those struggles, however bad they were, whether they were caused by me or caused against me, throughout all of that, there was still hope. Let me just read a few things that people who've read this book already have said. It's a page turner, with each chapter leaving you wanting to read just one more. You gave the reader motivation to look up and grab the hand that can lift you up on your feet and walk you through life's muddy mire. And I love the way you spoke of hurt and abuse, but never going into details that would have robbed the reader of their own inward pains and ability to take hold of the Lord's extended hand, the hand that will never let go. Broken Dreams and Hope is a book I wrote because I know what it is to have broken dreams. I know what it is to feel hopeless. But I also know what it is to have hope, because that hope has a name, and that name is Jesus Christ. And we're back for the takeaway. I'm hungry.
Yeah, I am now.
We talk about the takeaway and it's like fun. So I'm hungry. So I mentioned in the first part about Carolyn Mahany was asked about sex and stuff. I think the question was, how often do you have sex with your husband? And she said, as often as I can. And there was this kind of ripple of laughter at this not quite so young wife saying something like that. And I think it's really sad that, men want sex, women don't. Absolute lie, it's not true. Men need to have sex, women don't. Absolute rubbish. And only men struggle with pornography. Absolute rubbish. I mentioned before about another marriage couple who do stuff, and she struggled with pornography quite badly. So, get away from stereotypes. Men and women want to have sex. It's not a need as such, I guess, because in God's eyes, being married or being single is just as good. One isn't better than the other. Marriage is so much more than just about sex. It's not just about having children, because otherwise, if you can't have children, you're saying that it's not a marriage. Well, that's not right. So we've got to be careful with some of these stereotypes and these judgments of, well, the X equals Y equals Z and 2 + 2 = 4, and we get ourselves a bit of a muddle. Yeah,
and I think we've said in previous episodes about how we bring our own baggage to a relationship, don't we? And so we've all bringing our own baggage, whether what you're bringing from families. I mean, I work with people who've gone through difficult experiences and they've seen their mothers and fathers behave in a particular way, and it does affect you as a child. And so you might not even realise an attitude or a way you think about sex that has come through the family, has come through something you've seen, because we're always being bombarded by messages, aren't we? And we should, as Christians, what's that one about, continually renewing your mind? David cried out, "Please, Lord, search my heart. Is there anything in here that ought not to be?" And we should be doing that. Remain, keep the marriage bed pure, or something. Just be pure and clean and stuff. Because we're out there in the world and we are seeing things and we have seen things. So we need to keep it clean, don't we?
Yeah, renewing your mind. So my awkward question for this one. So, what's your favourite memory? Keeping in this semi-PG rated. What's your favourite memory of lovemaking with me over 25 years?
That's really odd. I don't know, because it's always the build-up, isn't it? And sometimes it's more of the build-up, isn't it? And stuff, isn't it? You've taken to little notes and just kind of
little notes around the house, your lunchbox,
and just make me feel good about myself and therefore interested. Puts me in the mood, if you like.
So my effort.
Your effort, a bit like the Song of Songs, how there's a lot of effort beforehand, isn't there?
No, it's good.
Wooing, is it called? Or just
wooing. Oh, wooing is a good word. I've known that one for a while.
Yeah, I think
wooing
so,
one another. Wooing sounds like a pigeon.
Yeah, but I'd have to think some more. But see, I've been thinking about this. I think we need a part 2 to this.
We have to have a part 2.
So I'll think a bit more about that and hopefully have something for next time.
There you go. Worst memory, I would say, is that 6-7 month period where we just didn't talk to each other, see each other, look at each other. That was really rough, and that was not all my fault. It takes two, both ways. But yeah, that was my darkest time, I think, because you went from the honeymoon where you can't have sex enough to working and finding life and meeting your old friends and your old family, and it's a bit we're having sex now. That's kind of a bit weird. And then you kind of hit in the 2-year period, and then it's all of a sudden work is kind of taking over, and you weren't interested in me one time and I got really off about it.
I think I remember a couple of times which have been unexpected times, unusual times. You can do the whole setup, you have the candles, you have a glass of wine, you have a nice meal, and it's like, well, yeah, that was all right. And then other times you don't really make an effort, and it seems to be
so the one that you can think about is you can go for junk food. It's like if you're going for your McDonald's or your Burger King or your KFC or your pizza. Yeah, that's fine, it'll fill you up. It's a bit like a salad. This is fine, it does its job. Or then there's the kind of, you take it out for a meal, you dress up, you're going out for, wining and dining, and you're going to a posh restaurant, it's a 5-course meal. They're both good.
The different ways of looking at having sex. You have the sort of the quickie or the longy.
Quickie or the longy.
Or the longy or the middly.
Middly? I don't remember the second one.
No, I don't know.
Apparently there's a middly. There you go. That's Marriage Matters for you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as we took us on the sex part of a relationship, but you can't not.
No, and I
It's
think
kind of
we've
a
got to do part 2, haven't we?
We'll do a part 2, which may be a part 3 at this rate.
Yeah.
We've got so much more we wanted to say and share and stuff. So, yes, thank you for joining us as we talk about what was the title? You see, title just.
Let's get physical. Don't do it. Don't sing it.
I'm not singing it in my head. I am. There you go. Marriage matters. Let's get physical. Yeah, let us know what you think. We're quite happy to have comments. There's loads of ways you can get in touch. Don't complain you can't. And we'll be back next week for more.
Yes.
Bye for now.
There are many ways to keep in touch with the Berry Bunch. Visit our website and sign up to the Berry Bites newsletter so that you can be notified of all our videos, posts, exciting news and seasonal events.
Subscribe to our Vimeo and YouTube channels where we post brand new homegrown video resources every week.
Join us on Dingdash, a fabulous place that connects people from all around the world. It's social media as it should be. Come join the rebellion.
Like us on Facebook, where we hang out and post extra things to encourage and inspire you. We're on Twitter and Tumblr too. You can also follow us on Instagram, where we share extra photos from the world of the Berry Bunch.
If you've enjoyed any of our posts or videos, share it with a friend and encourage them too. And if you want to encourage us, then like, comment and share on what we make. To help support the ministry we freely provide, check us out on Patreon where you can support us financially as you feel led.